And we're back with a new 6HE update. The last time I talked with you was last month before Chinese New Year. You can guess what it is right now. Yep, it's Chinese New Year. That means 2 weeks holiday over whole Asia, but a full month of no production because factories usually also do their spring cleaning during this time. That means they're gone for 2 weeks holiday and have another 2 to 3 weeks of cleaning all the machinery, tools, you name it. Now, we used to do that also back home or in Europe years ago. That's why we would also call it spring cleaning around that time. But I mean, who does that now? I surely don't. Just make sure your house is tidy. Anyway, does that mean that we have any problems now that it's Chinese New Year? No. Yes, but no. So what happened is we were planning to do PVT, which is the production validation test, if you remember, which is the small scale mass production to test the assembly line, etc., before Chinese New Year. But we couldn't make it. And the reason for that is because the whole stabilizer story I talked about in the last update. We're going to continue in that on this update. And also some minor details when it came to the plate, some packaging things. We just needed some more time to finalize and get the results that we wanted. And fortunately, we have the luxury to delay PVT to after Chinese New Year, because did it cause a delay for the mass production? No, or well, pretty much no. And the reason why is that we can do PVT very shortly before mass production. So what we're going to do now is about a week before we go into mass production, we're going to have a PVT run. If there's no major issues, even if there's small issues, then we can continue with mass production a week later. So still on schedule, keeping a close eye, and we'll find out where we are after Chinese New Year when everything opens again. Does that mean right now we're sitting still and doing nothing? Also, no, because this is a good time for us to work on the software, for example, but also checking samples and go a little bit more in depth on the samples that we received and what we want to do after Chinese New Year immediately when everything opens. So first of all, we have the leather strap. Now remember, in the last update I also covered the leather strap and I showed you a little bit of the final design, but it was not the final colors and material, etc. Now we have two samples here from two different manufacturers of the leather strap. So one is from a Chinese manufacturer, the other one is from a Hungarian manufacturer. Now, we are biased. We want to do this production for the leather strap within Europe and rather not in China, but we always have to check with different suppliers. We can't just base our samples and research on one supplier only. Now, it happens to be that the Hungarian supplier did a really good job. So he did, I don't want to say immediately he did a better job than the Chinese manufacturer, but the material's better, the workmanship is a bit better, and you can see he put a little bit more love into it, while this one is just exactly what we asked for without the extra love. So we're going to continue with the Hungarian manufacturer. I'm just going to put this away and focus on the Hungarian one. So a big debate still that I added in the last update text is, are we going to use genuine leather or are we going to use vegan leather? Now, originally we wanted to go with vegan leather, but there's a really big issue that we're hitting against. That is that we're only going to make 400 of these. 400, that's very, very few. Look how small this is. Now, if you buy a piece of the raw material, it's usually like if it's leather, you have a big piece of, a big hide. You can imagine how many of these can already fit in. One hide, you can already make 400. Now, the thing is that vegan leather is a little bit more scarce. It's not available everywhere. It's not used very often. And there are many alternatives, but they're also very hard to get. And one of the reasons why we're not able to get it is because there's a very high MOQ, which is a minimum order quantity. So I actually went to different suppliers that offer different versions of vegan leather, and all of them had such a high MOQ, it just didn't make any sense when we're just making 400 of these one time. So we really had to kill off the vegan leather concept and continue with genuine leather instead. But I hear your concern, because we have the same concerns. Where is the leather sourced from? Because that's the most important aspect when it comes to sourcing these materials anyway. So if we would have gone for the Chinese manufacturer, God knows where, to be honest. And even if they would tell us where it would come from, you can be pretty sure they're lying about it. So that's also a reason why we preferred to go with the Hungarian manufacturer, and we wanted to source it within the European Union. we will know exactly where it will come from, and we can also make sure it's made more humanely than the alternatives that you would be able to get in China. Now, we know that this leather is completely sourced from Italy. I'll go into more details on this subject, and if you really wanted the vegan leather one, what alternatives we have in an email. So keep an eye open for the email if you're a founder, if you have the founder edition, where we go into more details and there will be a follow-up. Moving on to the next subject. Can you guess what it is somewhere here? Yes, that's right. It's the 5-sided dye sublimated keycaps with the take control theme. I'm just gonna say it one time because it's way too much to say. These PVT caps came in a couple weeks ago and they are so nice. It's much better than what we expected. We went to 3 different manufacturers, of which the first one said it's too difficult to do. The second one is still working on it and they've never seen something like this before. And this is the third one, which already sent over the sample. And we're surprised because we thought either the lines would not really match, it would be very blurry, or the black would be very gray. But to our surprise, the black is very black, the lines are relatively accurate we expected way worse. And then the legends are sharp, but on the yellow legends, it's a little bit blurred. I'm pretty amazed because this is the stretch goal we're working for. We're still working on it. It's not done yet. There's still more samples to come in. There's figuring out how we're gonna do all the costs and how we're gonna bring it to the market, etc. So there will be more about these keycaps as we go forward. I just wanted to show you what they look like and confirm that we are still working on this as promised. Now, if you watched the previous video all the way till the end, then you know that we were really hung up on the stabilizer keys. The stabilizers were not good enough. We wanted it to be better, but there was no clear answer to how to make it better. We tried a bunch of different things, but it didn't really make the sound that much different. Unfortunately, it's also not as simple as just throwing more money at it and then suddenly you have better stabilizers. It's not even as easy as just saying oh, why don't you do the screw-in stabilizers? Stabilizers are complicated. That was the conclusion we could draw, but there are ways that we can make it better. So first we looked at the plate tolerances and we looked at using different stabilizers to start with. So first we made sure the tolerances are smaller. That succeeded, but didn't really make a big difference at all. The second thing is we looked at Gatron stabilizers, and that actually made a pretty big difference. The Gatron stabilizers had a slightly different design from our default ones, and they sounded better, but they had the same amount of rattle. Sound and feel is better, but same amount of rattle, which still kind of sucks. So then we started looking into, does more lubrication actually help? And I have to be very specific here, more lubrication on the wires, which is the metal part of the stabilizer. And we quickly came to the conclusion that, I'm gonna put it very plain, more is better. Just lubricate that wire as if there's no tomorrow and it will just sound better. But it only improves one thing, which is the rattle. It takes away the rattle of the wire. So we communicated this with the manufacturer and looked at, okay, can we add a bunch more lubrication to these wires for the stabilizers? And we kind of ran into the issue where the stabilizer wire is lubricated by a machine. It's all automated and it can only lubricate up till 0.15 grams of lube. Now 0.15 is way too little compared to what we tested and what we wanted, and we want about double the amount. So we talked about adding another step in the whole process where there's manually extra lubrication added to every stabilizer. It's still being tested. We're going to receive samples with machine lubed and another one being machine lubed plus adding the manual lubrication, see if there's a big difference between the two, see if there's any issues there. And once that is confirmed, we can close down the whole stabilizer story. And that would make the stabilizer sound and feel better. Now, the last thing I do need to mention about the stabilizers is that we cannot make them white anymore. Since we opted now for the Gatron stabilizers, we can't make it in time to make white versions, and we can't afford to go with the minimum order quantity that would otherwise be required to get that color. So the stabilizers will be black. It's unfortunate the white stabilizer looks really nice, but we'd rather have better performance than good aesthetics when it comes to these stabilizers. So black stabilizers now. Now to close this huge update, we have one last thing, which is Wootup, the 3rd edition. Now, you probably received an email with an invitation for the Wootup 3rd edition. If you haven't, you can still join by filling in the form that's below this video. Just click on the link, fill in the form, and that way you can let us know you're planning to attend. It's very important for us to know if you're going to attend or not, because then we can better prepare for the event itself, which we're working on right now. Now, what is Wootup, right? So Wootup is actually a community event that we've started a couple years back, where we bring everybody from the Wooting community together, play some fun games, and look a bit at the future of Wooting, and also talk and share more about internal processes that we have at Wooting, so you can have more insight in how things really work. Lastly, there's also a tournament that we host where you can win actual prizes like the beautiful 60HE, and also always like a funny thing for the top 3. So join the Wootup, it's going to be a blast. Hope to see you on the 26th of February. Fill in the form, and I'll talk to you at probably the Wootup. Bye bye.